Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to this special segment of Trump Looks at the Patch Changes. So, this was extremely recently announced, and the change won't even come into effect until September 22nd. But boy, is this a whopper of a change. So Leeroy Jenkins now costs 5, up from 4. And Starving Buzzard now costs 5, up from 2. And a little bit of compensation for the Starving Buzzard, we're going to give it an attack and a health for the extra 3 mana it costs. So obviously these two were both extremely popular cards. You use Starving Buzzard in all the Hunter decks, you comboed it with the Unleash the Hounds, and you drew a bunch of cards, and that was one of the reasons why Hunter was good. Now that Starving Buzzard costs 5, it is probably the worst card? It's one of the worst cards in the game now. So basically, that card is straight out. So what does this mean for the Hunter? Even the face decks from Hunters use Starving Buzzard to get a bit of a card draw with the Unleash. Way back when Unleash the Hounds was nerfed from 2 mana to 3 mana, I was someone who said, okay, that's a pretty big nerf, but I think Hunter will still be viable. It took a long time, but Hunter started getting back into it. And this was like before Naxxramas even. Like Hunter really did take off because of Naxxramas though. This time around, I'm going to say I think Hunter is dead, because a lot of what makes decks good is having some element of card draw to it. And it was this Starving Buzzard Unleash combo which kept a lot of Hunters in it in the late game. You've basically removed Starving Buzzard from the game. I'm not entirely sure what to say other than I think Hunter is gone. Poof. On Leeroy Jenkins costing 5, I believe this also kills the Leeroy Jenkins. The main reason you used Leeroy Jenkins was in 2 main decks. You used it in Miracle Rogue. You play the Leeroy, you Shadow Step it, you Shadow Step it, you play the Leeroy, you play the Leeroy. You do 18 damage. Now you can't actually do 18 damage with Leeroy Jenkins. You can only deal 12 unless you also have the coin. And it'll cost you 8 mana to deal 12 damage, which is not actually that good. I believe that removes Leeroy as the finisher. However, Miracle Rogue might not be dead because it might go into the Malagos form instead, of which I actually, way back when, crafted a gold Malagos because I thought it might be better than the Miracle with the Leeroy version. The good news is I don't think Miracle is dead. It'll just use Malagos instead of Leeroy, which will make it weaker. Handlock I had considered removing Leeroy Jenkins for, and of course Handlock will no longer use it because part of the reason you used Leeroy Jenkins was to do 20 damage with Leeroy, Power Overwhelming, Faceless Manipulator, copy your 10-6 Leeroy Jenkins with the Faceless, do 20 to the face, and that was removed. The Leeroy Jenkins nerf I can understand. It is in fact a bit much. I suppose I'm a little surprised that it took this long if they were going to change it, but enough data I guess. Handlock will still be okay. They'll just not use Leeroy Jenkins, and they may or may not use Power Overwhelming still. Power Overwhelming still okay with Shadow Flame, and Faceless still okay without being able to copy Leeroy. The Starving Buzzard changed though. That's insane. Like I see some people arguing, oh, it still has the same text, why not just play it still? You can't run a card simply to play it on turn 8 as a card draw engine. It's the same reason why Sprint isn't good. Sprint costs 7. Are you going to save your Starving Buzzard and your Unleash the Hounds for turn 8? That's insane. And you can no longer do something like a Starving Buzzard into Creeper, into Web Spinner, into like another beast combo wombo. At the present time, I cannot think of a way to make Hunter work. Miracle will switch over to Malagos version, and we'll see whether or not that's any good. With the death of Hunter, this actually opens up a lot of room for other decks. I had to switch away from Priest and Warrior because Hunters were beating me up. Control Priest, Control Warrior in particular. So that's going to mean they're a lot better now that one of their major competitions has been, actually 2 of their major competitions have been removed, because Miracle is also a counter to Control Warrior and Control Priest. And Leeroy Jenkins being removed means it's a little slower. I think Malagos Rogue might be beating the Control Warrior and Control Priest, but I'm not entirely sure. Handlock comes back a lot because Handlock had an abysmal matchup against Hunter. And now that Hunter is dead, and I'm just going to say Hunter's dead, but who knows, I may be proven wrong. We've got the Handlock, so that is going to make Shaman a lot better, because Shaman beats Handlock really well. You got the Hexes for the Giants, you got the Earthshocks for the Twilight Drakes. So these two card changes are a really big deal. Expect the metagame to shift a lot, but you knew that already because Hunters were making up over 50% of the metagame. Perhaps not 50%, somewhere between 33 and 50% from my general data. So yeah, big changes. Rest in peace, Hunter. Prepare for the rise of the Handlock. Prepare for the rise of the Shaman to counter the Handlock. And prepare for a lot of other decks to be viable now. Which is good, because having a lot of viable decks is good. But, you know, I think this is too extreme, because, like, Starving Buzzard, like, couldn't it just cost 3? And that is a look at the patch that will come into effect on September 22nd. I don't think I've ever seen a card get nerfed by 3 mana. It's never happened. Unprecedented. It's incredible. Trump discusses the next patch changes.